And to discuss this, let's bring in Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow of the Taihe Institute, a Beijing-based think tank. Einar, a very happy new year to you. Sorry we're making you work on this day, but you're too important. Now, let's get into business. Considering the highs and lows of bilateral ties, especially in recent years, how should we head into this anniversary? What is the overarching sentiment here when we mark the 45-year of diplomatic relations?
Well, obviously, it's not exactly smooth, but, let's just do a little recap. It all begins with the recognition of one China that changes geopolitically the balance between the USSR, China, and the United States. Economically, the WTO comes along, greatest advancement in recent history in terms of economics, not just for China, but for the developing world. And for China, it also meant, and for the world, the greatest reduction of poverty ever seen. Climate change goals and actions were agreed upon. So, when we look back at the what has been achieved, you have to have hope for the future. It's a question of whether you see the glass half empty or half full. For China, it's half full, and they hope it gets better.
Einar, the two countries have established over 280 pairs of sister provinces, states, and sister cities over the past decades. What role do they play in bilateral ties?
Well, it's a very increasingly important one as the political situation is a little bit calcified, and they're pursuing the economic ties, as you saw with the 3 standing ovations Xi got when he was addressing the companies in California. But these are gateways to economic and cultural understanding of both sides. This is really important. Cultural differences that could once be ignored now must be understood. We are in a multipolar reality. This idea that you don't have to know anything about those you're dealing with, that they just have to know you is over. I was chairman of my state, Wisconsin's International Trade Council. We had a very good relationship with Heilongjiang Province. It's over 30 years old, and it's been a gateway to understanding both ways. Very important to have this kind of people-to-people and economic exchange.
Einar, you mentioned having to have hope, and that reminds me of something President Xi has often reiterated, which is China and the U.S. can help each other succeed and prosper. I mean, the fact that this is one of the most important bilateral relationships in the world is because that everything that happens in the bilateral ties goes far beyond just China and the U.S. The whole world takes a bearing from the good and the bad in this relationship. If they put their minds and their efforts together, what good could China and U.S. relations do to the world?
Okay. Well, I always look at this relationship as the most consequential relationship in a world where relationships matter more than they used to. Political stability, conflict resolution, climate change, global economic development, all need constructive China-U.S. participation. Without that, it's hard to see how things can change in a good manner. You need leadership. Both countries have a duty to do that. China is trying from its side, but there are always frictions. When you have one country that's been established, is used to running everything, and another country rises, and we saw that basically with Japan, but I don't think China wants to repeat that particular model.
Well, Einar, you talk about confrontation, conflict. So on the geopolitical front, what are some of the main challenges facing the development of China-U.S. relations?
Well, I think there's a certain amount of ideological rigidity within Washington itself. You see this constantly in this thing where, Joe Biden doesn't hate Chinese people, but he always talks about China as some sort of evil force, accusing leaders and calling them names and things like that. So it's very hard to see how you're going to change the mind of people who are, way past 70 years old. But, there's our political, economic, culture, and security frictions that are part of every relationship, especially when it involves so much massive change. But, there is a positive path forward. Economic cooperation, as China is, showing by opening and reforming its markets so that, countries, not only the United States, can come to China and grow and prosper. And cultural understanding, what we were talking about before, through more direct contacts. You know, this is why Beijing is easing visa restrictions in the United States as of January 1st and increasing direct flights. You have to have these other channels open when one of the channels seems a little bit stuck at the moment.
Love and hatred relations between the two world's biggest economies. Thank you so much, Einar, for your analysis.
I always love to end on a positive note. Einar, thank you for your analysis.